What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Conversation Station. This episode, we're going to be reviewing Wonder Man, the new Marvel show that just premiered at the end of last month. I just recently checked it out. I gave it some time to breathe, and I guess we'll get right into a review.
The world is stunned today when internationally celebrated and reclusive filmmaker Von Kovac sprung out of retirement to sign on for a remake of Wonder Man. Mr. Von Kovac, could you tell us more?
Everyone is tired of superheroes. There is an opportunity to reimagine a whole genre of storytelling.
Have you thought about casting?
So, what's this big audition you were talking about?
It's a huge opportunity. I'm auditioning for Wonder Man.
Did you hear about Wonder Man? I need to be in this movie.
Sorry, you crazy.
I was born to play this character.
Are you serious? Boo, they are already talking to Leo.
You just gotta go out there and crush it.
Now, the show premiered on January 27th, and it's part of the MCU's Phase 6, and it's under the Marvel Spotlight banner, kind of like Echo, which is focuses on more smaller stories rather than multiversal events, but there's definitely some tie-ins to everything else. And honestly, I've already seen comments like with people asking for this character to be in Secret Wars. So I can't imagine that they don't have some type of plans. Now, playing the role of Wonder Man is Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he played Black Manta in both of the Aquaman movies. He was also in the 2021 Candyman movie, and he was also in Matrix Resurrections. And he also had, I believe, a dual role in the Watchmen series. Now, if you've just been watching movies in the last few years, I'm sure you've seen one of those movies. I liked both the Aquamans, and I loved him in those, but my personal favorite out of the list is probably Candyman. I really liked that movie. I thought it was really interesting. We also have Sir Ben Kingsley back as Trevor Slattery. He does a fantastic role as Simon's best friend slash mentor in the acting world. This movie follows Simon Williams in his journey to become an actor and to play this role, Wonder Man. Wonder Man is like a movie star or a movie character in this universe, so he wants to try to portray Wonder Man as a newer movie. We find out later that the whole audition and the movie is a setup for something else, and it's just a really great storyline. And while, again, they say that this deals with smaller scale stories, definitely with, dealing with the Department of Damage Control, obviously that, ties into everything else with what we saw. This is the same agent we saw in Spider-Man No Way Home.
Department of Damage Control. We have a warrant for the arrest of Peter Parker.
You know the Fourth Amendment?
Sure.
Unreasonable search and seizure?
Get in here, guys. Let's go.
Now, while this show is stated as a miniseries, I really hope we do get more or just more of this character, because honestly, I think it's just really cool, and there's obviously little pieces of the story that still need to be told. There was a lot of fun. This whole the whole show, the whole series, the whole 8 episodes, really dives into Hollywood acting. Honestly, I feel like that's got to be a real head trip to be an actor pretending to be bad at acting. I don't know. It's just such a especially during the first few episodes when he's showing how he's trying to be an actor. It's kind of crazy because he's very in my opinion, a very established actor. So I feel like it takes someone very talented to be able to kind of I guess regress, you would say, and act like you kind of don't know what you're doing and you're still getting your foot in the door, even though obviously no matter what you do, everything's a learning experience. But it still was cool to see, it's cool to see somebody try to act like they didn't know how to act or act like they were learning how to act. It was pretty cool. But Simon Williams is, having a hard time within the industry just trying to make his way in. They show that everybody has to sign something called a doorman clause, and because something happened with another metahuman, another superpowered individual, that they don't want to take the chance of putting another one in Hollywood. All these little things I feel like at some point may tie into the bigger world, and have mentions and references, just because the doorman situation is such a big event. You feel like somehow, some way that's going to get mentioned. Trevor and Simon are an absolutely fantastic duo. The way that they've pit Trevor against Simon without him knowing, and the way that he's in such a jammed up position after everything that's happened. Ben Kingsley did such a great job, just with even not being a superpowered being, he brought so much to this these 8 episodes. And there was I really loved the moments when, Simon was overthinking or just stressed out, and, Trevor was just helping him, like, hey, here's your box breathing, like, just try to think it out. Simon with his overthinking, I will say, like, I've never seen so much of myself in a character. Like, yeah, you put, too much thought into something, sometimes you just gotta go ahead and do it. And there was a few speeches from Ben Kingsley in the show that I just felt were really great, whether they were written for him or, whether he wrote it, whatever. Like, there was some really, really great moments when he's talking to Simon and he's talking about acting and why they act and what their job is as actors. And while I understand it's a show and those are lines, he delivered those lines like kind of like he was delivering a message to, any other actors who would listen. Kind of like, this is what a little bit of what I think. This is why we do the craft. And it was, I don't know, those scenes were really cool. I really like those ones where he's just explaining to Simon, like, just educating him about being an actor. There's a few very small scenes, and because of that, Simon really looks up to and sticks up for Trevor. Even though in a lot of circles, Trevor's not necessarily the most respected guy because he's had a very troubled past. As I said, there was another hero, that whole doorman clause. That doorman episode, if you saw it, was fantastic. It was, again, funny to see Josh Gad come in. My only gripe is with that episode, and again, this comes to more of a gripe with Disney, not so much Marvel. Love Josh Gad, love the fact that, they were calling him Olaf and all that stuff. Honestly, like, I love the club scene when he's singing the Olaf song. Like, it's really cool, but at the same time, like, there was like a split second of like, oh, that's hilarious, we were laughing, and then like, as soon as that faded, it's just like, Disney really can't pull themselves out of stuff sometimes. Like, that was the only thing of the show was like, could probably done without that, but they didn't let it go too long. It was just a quick thing to laugh and say, hey, Disney's a part of Marvel, haha, moved on. But Josh Gad was great, and then him disappearing, like I said, I gave this show like time to breathe, so I seen on the internet the fake like Josh Gad's missing poster. So I was like, oh, clearly something happened to him. I just did my best to like avoid spoilers, but eventually I saw the show, saw what happened to him, and now you know why he's missing. Also, Doorman got his powers from a Roxxon dumpster that was leaking that sludge, if anybody caught on to that. So that was pretty interesting. Comes back the next day, it's gone. It was really good. That was really cool. And then the rapid progression of Doorman's like career and how fast they went through everything. It was really awesome. It really didn't feel like you're away from the show at all. You know what I mean? Even though, obviously we're dealing with a whole nother character that we don't really see throughout the rest of the time, and you got to figure that they probably locked him up for what happened. And again, this goes back to the whole Department of Damage Control. Now we're dealing with Agent Cleary, I believe his name is, and it's the same guy who was coming after Spider-Man. I believe they've stated that the Department of Damage Control will be going after mutants once they come into play later. I'm not sure if that's true or how much of that's going to be real, but that would be interesting to see. Simon Williams also in this small mini series says that he doesn't know how he got his powers. He doesn't know where it all started. He doesn't really explain how it happened. There's obviously no, his father's not in the picture, which his father's shown in a lot of flashbacks, so it's leading me personally to believe that when he discovered his powers, that may have been his father that got hurt, or his father may have been there, or something like that. But that I don't believe that was touched on in the whole show. Him going to see his family and Trevor going with him, and that pressure and that tension was really, really crazy and cool, and just a really great part of the episode. I guess in the comics, Simon's brother Demetrius is supposed to be an enemy, so that's going to be interesting to see if they go that route with it. Well, I guess a lot of people, I've seen like comments saying people were excited to see him. A big reason I waited on this show is just because I was kind of iffy about the whole hiding powers thing. I thought Marvel was going to do the whole bait and switch and just not show us what he's capable of, and just do the whole and almost get there and never fully get there. But with the way Simon has to manage his anger and manage his powers without anybody knowing, he doesn't really want to be a hero. I did read that in the comics, the original Wonder Man, obviously I'm simplifying this, but he's like a bad guy in the beginning, it said, and then he dies and he gets resurrected, and then he becomes an Avenger afterwards. Now again, obviously I probably oversimplified that. I need to read through and see what actually happened, but that doesn't seem the route they're going with the show. Simon doesn't really want to be a hero at all. He doesn't want anybody to know he has powers, and all the way up until the very last episode, he's obviously hiding, and the Department of Damage Control is trying to monitor him and see if he's a threat or not. Now his power comes from ionic power, and he seems to be able to create these ionic charges that, I mean, he could basically do anything with. And reading through like all his list of powers, he really is like damn near limitless. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play with that. Now here we'll get to the last episode. If you haven't seen the last episode, turn this off, go watch it, or until you watch it, don't watch this. That last episode, in my opinion, was fantastic. It was the culmination of a perfect little mini-series. Honestly, even though I probably should have saw it coming, Trevor taking the fall just really, I didn't see that coming. I thought, Simon was going to get caught and have to kind of fight his way out, and that was going to be his way of showing the world he had powers. But obviously it went a different direction, and while the Department of Damage Control was really, had a hard-on for Simon, they just kind of wanted to get somebody in order to justify the fact that their, division isn't completely useless. Now, that's kind of crazy because I thought that the whole Department of Damage Control was being funded by Tony Stark, and I don't know, I guess that's changed over time. But basically, in order to prove their worth to the government, they were going after Simon Williams, but they ended up with the Mandarin. And it's kind of funny how, like I said, Trevor did the whole, like, oh, you never knew, I was right under your nose, messing with him all the way till the end. And eventually, of course, they lock him up where nobody can find him. And then we get to Simon preparing for a role. This old guy asking him, why do you want to profile me? Threw me for a loop, had no idea. Like, I genuinely thought he was rehearsing a role, and it just didn't make sense to me either. And the way he was doing it, telling like, oh, I just want to, go with you, live your life, this and that. And, as it progresses, you see what Simon's actually trying to do and what he's actually trying to get into. This is where I think, I don't have no reference for this, but I believe that this little piece, when he gets in there and, he finally gets in and he sees Trevor and he's able to get into his cell. And we realize that the whole reason he's doing this is to break Trevor out of prison because that's his best friend. But in that little moment, I think, it's awesome because Trevor's telling him, like, oh, we can't get out of here. There's sensors, there's all these things, facial scan, all this. And Simon's like, yeah, but we're not going that way. And, he charges up and they go and they, just blast straight through the ceiling. Now for me, I don't know why, I got reminded of Willy Wonka. It's like, you remember at the end of Willy Wonka where, Wonka's telling Charlie, like, he didn't win, it gets all serious, and, like, for a minute you kind of forget that Wonka's this magical person that can do basically anything he wants. And there's, like, this realness to the movie for a second before they get in the elevator. That is what that reminded me of. Once Simon busts through and grabs Trevor and, they go up, and it's like when they, come out of the glass ceiling in the glass elevator. It's to remind us that, like, we're still in a super powerful world. We're still in a magical world where literally anything could happen. Like, a guy could break in and fly a dude out of a prison. And that, I don't know why, but that to me is like, it's a symbol of, like, you don't know what Marvel's going to do next. They really could do some really cool stuff with these characters. And this show is just a signifier of that. And I think if this gives us anything to look forward to with Doomsday and Secret Wars, I think we got some really good stuff coming. Because they did a great job with both showing his powers for a powerful individual who doesn't want to show them. But they showed enough of it to really, like I said, really shock and awe and show how powerful he is. And then to go into the last episode and remind us that, again, this is the Marvel Universe. This is the MCU. Anything could happen. You don't know who or what or why, but anything could happen. And I think that's what I've been waiting for. That's what I've been looking for in the shows and in the movies. But I really enjoyed this show, like, all the way from the start to the finish. I'm glad I gave it time to breathe before watching it. I really hope we see more of this show or just more of this character, because it's fantastic. Same with Trevor Slattery. Joe Pantoliano was in, I hope I'm saying his last name right, but he was in there as well as himself. And he has a funny little line where he says, like, oh, if I was British, they would have knighted me already. That absolutely, like, if you watch Ben Kingsley's face when he says that, it's hilarious because Sir Ben Kingsley obviously has been knighted. So that was like a super funny joke. I really liked Joe Pantoliano being in there. That was just awesome. I think he played a funny ass part. But it was fun. It was fun seeing him, like, make fun of and take pokes at Hollywood. And it was just a really great show. If you haven't gotten around to seeing it yet, I definitely would recommend it. I think it has a little something for everybody. The musical track list is fantastic as well. But it's just a well-written, well-performed show. There's so much in it that shocks you. There's so much. There's a lot of heart in it too. There's a lot of, heartfelt moments and some really good stuff. But I really do appreciate any time you spent watching my video. I got to get to work. Thank you. I hope to see you again.